The Coin Lady channel is pleased to have you back. A settlement conference between the SEC and Ripple appeared on the court docket today, thus speculation about a settlement is raging. Without warning. The home of Brad Garlin, it is intriguing to observe Brad Garlin's residence in the Stuart Eldorado photograph of him heading up the steps of the New York courthouse. Everyone seemed to be wondering what was going on. Even the CEO of Ripple, and the attorneys from both sides. For your benefit, I sought out the most reputable sources and perspectives. In order to gain a better understanding, we could sift through this. Former SEC Regional Director Mark Bagel was asked, "What's going on here?" during the settlement hearing and was tagged on the court docket. "How do you perceive this?" "Wow, Ripple settled," he exclaimed. After they agreed to pay $2 billion, he said, "Oops, I misunderstood that, and it became unlawful to trade XRP." Considering how slim the possibilities of a settlement are, it's probably just a required meeting. That, he says again, is only his view. Thankfully, he is no longer employed by the SEC, and so does not possess any inside knowledge on this matter. If he was still employed by the SEC, he would not be engaging in conversation with us. As a source, I find him useful. Reason being, he isn't a crypto guy, in fact, he despises crypto. Despite his bias in favor of the SEC camp, he provides a solid analysis in this case. According to Fox News correspondent Eleanor Turrott, she shared the judge's real ruling, which said that SEC and Ripple were required to meet for an hour in order to try to settle the case without having to go to court. In addition, the ruling itself specifies that all parties and their attorneys were required to be present. We likely saw Brad Garlin House, Ripple's CEO, because he and his lawyers were likely obligated to be present at that meeting. Could an agreement have been reached? Without a doubt. The courts order these hearings for this reason. Thus, it's one final attempt to try to reach a consensus and resolve this matter. Why, therefore, would Mark Bagel's claim that the likelihood is practically zero? The ruling that XRP can trade freely on the secondary market, even if Ripple is the one doing the selling, is a huge win for Ripple and XRP holders. The SEC will have a hard time accepting and reversing this decision, especially since they are sitting on nearly 50 quadrillion 40 million worth of XRP. Sure, here you go, they're not going to go well. That can be rolled back. We will not sell any of our important assets. I take it that we're still very much in disagreement on what each side is prepared to give up if the SEC decides that selling XRP on the secondary market is acceptable and not a securities offering. It will be difficult for them to assert jurisdiction over Cardano, Polkadot, or any of these other cryptocurrency assets. Listen, this is unique and reserved for XRP, they would declare. Yet, this significantly complicates their work. Secretary public funds are being utilized by them. This means that they are not too worried about the expense of the ongoing litigation. The next question is, how can we force a settlement on them that will be beneficial to them? Grants them influence in the cryptocurrency market. In addition, what could be the reason behind Ripple's actions? At this moment in time, I find it difficult to imagine that a resolution is reached. The only ones who know for sure are Ripple Net SEC. So maybe they're settling in the hopes of avoiding a tiny penalty this time. Plus, they'd like to avoid embarrassment by making Ripple discomfort disappear. Potentially, they might change their strategy and attempt to resolve the issue with Ripple by claiming that, in fact, it's proof-of-stake coins into the issue, as participants are combining their resources for a common goal. The likelihood is high. I mean, this could need some attention. The SEC would have to benefit greatly from it, though. Perhaps they require additional funding or something. Here, the government isn't very concerned with the typical causes of financial settlements. Public funds are being frittered away with ease by them. It is clear to us, they probably sat there for the mandatory hour to converse for a bit before checking out, if I had to guess. Once again, the length of time they remained unreported is unknown to me. We shall have to wait and see. We'll find out in due course. Personally, I think this will finish, and I will be quite intrigued to observe the final outcome of that fine. We will have more details when we see Ripple's reaction, in which they attempt to dispute the number of international sales and the exact amount of profit made from those transactions, which could lead to conflict. The true case for penalties and sanctions, in my opinion, will soon be brought forward, and it begins with Ripple files that are, as a non-attorney, just a goofball YouTuber. My best opinion is that the settlement could be somewhere around 5 or 10% of the original amount. So I'll simply ply and offer her my explanation for reducing that outrageous figure to something more doable. In the more probable scenario, the court will have to determine a penalty amount that is significantly lower than the $2 billion requested by the SEC. I would guess $100 or $200 million, but we won't know for sure until we receive Ripple's response and determine how much of that occurred within US jurisdiction. Finally, there was a strange settlement with the SEC that I haven't seen reported. It seems like Empower Oversight settled their lawsuit regarding the Hinman docs. They were attempting to get their hands on those documents and suspected some hidden dealings. They have settled with the SEC without explaining why, though some have speculated that it could be because the SEC personally examined the documents, so maybe there wasn't anything there. In all likelihood, it was something else entirely. Was that shocking? I'm not sure. I thought they would make a serious play for those documents. Then, out of nowhere, it's resolved, according to the paperwork I discovered. Please tell me more about Ripple Net SEC. You might have heard about that on Law 360. Apparently, yesterday was the day the case was finally resolved. Does that have anything to do with Ripple? I don't believe so. Even while there is some connection between the two concerns, I don't think they are the same. The Ripple court case includes those Hinman documents. I fail to see how the current events surrounding Ripple may be connected to the lawsuit filed by the Empowerment to obtain the Hinman docs here. I don't see how a settlement might influence the other. You can't compare the two. On that front, I'm hoping for updates soon. That was resolved for what reason? What happened to the Hinman documents that made us give up? I am aware that an inquiry into all of that has been going on for some time. Could you tell me if there were interest conflicts? We are aware that someone asked whether anything might ever be discovered on that. If it had been my job to look, I would have found it long ago. As far as my investigation goes, the man in question was receiving millions of dollars from an Ethereum Alliance member, who specifically instructed me not to meet with him or bring up any topics related to this. Furthermore, he proceeds to discuss regulatory clarity, namely Hinman's personal regulatory clarity and Wildcat. He was wrong to do that regardless of compensation. Despite my lack of belief in the efficacy of the endeavor, it is clear that a conflict of interest existed. Everything seems like everything fades away with the passing of time, and we won't hear anything more about it. The way things are with the government, as they are with most things in life. Regrettably, it is impossible to predict. Well, that concludes our video. Do me a favor and subscribe to my channel. Muchas gracias, depart.